Over here, obviously, is the T-Rex. Today, we're talking Power Rangers, and specifically, we're going to be talking about the Megazord from the Super 7 Ultimates line. And as usual, we'll be taking a look at the box, we'll be taking a look at the figure itself, of course, and how well it was brought to life from the source material. And finally, we'll be looking at how the figure compares to a bunch of other versions of the same figure. So stick around, and we're going to get right into it. And here's our box. It's not that different or especially special compared to the other Super 7 boxes. But the one thing I do want to point out is that here's the Dragonzord box. It's obviously much bigger than our Megazord box, but the thing that's more important to me is the fact that the Dragonzord and the T-Rex one actually has this nice embossed symbol here, and you can see how it's reflective, but that's not true over here. This one is just printed on, and they don't have anything kind of close to this. To me, that's really disappointing because I kind of felt like all of the Zords should be kind of a similar type of thing. Now, I know the box is a different size than this one, but hopefully that doesn't mean that they're different sized figures, because in the show, the Megazord is still around the same height as the Dragonzord, even though the Megazord had all of the robots combined. So we'll see that in just a second. But again, to me, having that not be the same over here, it's kind of a huge bummer because I think this is really nice, really nice. Other than that, there is our Megazord. It's got some nice presentation. So if you were just going to display it like that, it looks reasonably nice. However, there is some like kind of soft plastic in there that I think is meant to protect the figure inside of the box. So that doesn't look super great. And then otherwise on the back, like the others, we have a picture of our robot, and then we have a nice little description. And there you go. So before we get too far into it, let's take a look at the accessories. So first up is the Power Sword. And this one, it looks really good. The detail is nice and in there. The paint could be better for sure, but I'm glad that they at least had that detail in there. And it's pretty freaking tall. You can see it's pretty much to the shoulder, which I think this might actually be too tall relative to the actual Power Sword in the show, but it's still pretty darn cool looking. We have the Mastodon head as the shield, and that looks pretty good too. Pretty good paint apps on this one, although you can see that the trunk is cut off like that. And then there's your handle. The Megazord has two fists on there, and to hold the sword and shield, you got two holding hands. Like our Dragonzord and our T-Rex Zord, we do have the power coin. Here it is compared to the Dragonzord coin, and here it is compared to the T-Rex coin. So basically the same exact thing. It's a nice heft made out of metal. You can see that on the back, it's got a texture on this one instead. And comparing it to the Dragonzord one, that one's darker, but it's not textured the way that this Megazord one is. So I don't know if that's something that they're doing from now on, or if that's just something that they're doing unique for the Megazord coin. But there you go. It looks really nice. And here is the tiny little Rangers that the Megazords come with. So you can see that we have the Green Ranger on the left, and the Megazord comes with the pink and yellow that you see right in the middle. Now, the pink and yellow are using the same exact body mold, obviously, but what's kind of neat is that you can actually see that there's some molding in the head. And while that is true with the red as well, it's a lot harder to tell. So I don't know if that's just a defect or what, but it looks better over here. And I'm really glad that they have the white diamonds over here on the pink and yellow. I wish they would have done that with the red, but I don't know why mine doesn't. Maybe that's just something that they changed after they started producing the red ones. And so really at this point, we're only missing black and blue. So we'll see where we get those next. And let's take a look at how these look on the Megazord itself. So here's how the mini Rangers look on the Megazord. I think they're probably close to the right size. Maybe a little bit smaller would be nice, but they do sit inside of the chest. That's where the cockpit is. So I think that's probably about right. But that's how it looks. So now let's take a look at the Megazord. And here's the Megazord. So I would say that right off the bat, I like the way it looks. I think overall the proportions are pretty good. I think the head might be just a smidge too big, but that's not that bad to me. For me, I think the part that I'm not a super fan of is the yellow that they chose for the saber-tooth tiger. It seems a little pale, and on screen, I think it looks a little bit brighter than how it actually looks in real life. So if I can, I'll take a picture to see if it looks more accurate. But the blue actually also looks a little bit paler than I think it should. The black and the red seems fine. I'm not too worried about those. But other than that, I think it looks pretty good. I think comparing it to an on-screen appearance, which I'll put over there, you'll see that it looks pretty reasonable. In some shots, the hands look a little bit darker in the official one than we see on this figure. But overall, I still am happy with that. I think I don't know if these were actually supposed to be M's, but even if it isn't, this design, the whites that are in between, like kind of where the M is, they're a little bit thicker than they should be. So that's, you know, one thing. And I think our eyes are just a little bit smaller than they should be too. I mean, now I know that sounds like kind of a lot of minor nitpicks. And I do think that they are just a lot of minor nitpicks, because overall, I'm still really happy with this. I'm much more pleased with this than I am of the Dragonzord. But let's go ahead and take a look at the articulation. So we can see that our arms can come out like that. We do have some not even quite 90-degree elbow articulation. Hands, of course, can go all the way around. And the hands also have that level of swivel. It's a back and forth. That's nice that the elbows can actually twist, and then they can come up, of course. Our head seems to have pretty much full range of motion, since I'm pretty sure it's on some kind of ball joint. We can go up a little bit, but not a whole lot, but that's okay. I don't think they normally look really far up anyway. So as far as the torso goes, we don't have any ab crunch, but we have 2 points of articulation. So this top part, you can see that when I move it, is moving just a little bit separately from this lower torso portion. But the lower torso actually also has its own limited, but it does have some articulation as well. So that's limited because of this piece right here. If this was gone, then this would be able to move, but obviously we don't want that to be gone. So that's okay there. Interestingly, the lower half, this kind of skirt portion, is pretty pliable. However, I don't think the legs move enough for it to be useful enough. You can see that when I try to like kick the leg out a little bit more, that's kind of in the way anyway. So I'm not sure why they made this one the way they did, because this one can't really articulate very much anyway. So it does have like the ability to go out, sort of, but again, this one impacts the ability to do that. So while I applaud that articulation level at the legs, it's a strange decision since like these can't move anyways. It is very difficult to articulate, and I don't want to do it because I feel like I'm going to snap it. But you can see right here the joint, and so this one should give you approximately 90 degrees-ish. It's probably going to be similar to the elbow, so I guess probably more like 45 degrees. But hey, that's articulation, so I'm not going to knock that. With our feet, we have just the smallest amount of articulation, like that. That's the same for both. So we also have just the slightest amount of ankle pivot. So that's interesting, but it's not really useful enough to actually get it to pose, I feel like. Well, I guess maybe a little bit. You can pose that just a little bit. Okay, that's nice. I do find it a little problematic that the saber-toothed tiger fangs are pointed up like this, but whatever, that might just be a QC thing, and maybe not all of them are going to turn out like that. And looking at the back, I think that looks pretty good too. I'll do my best to find a shot of the back of what the Megazord looks like, but I can't imagine it's going to be super complicated, and hopefully not too far off base of what it's supposed to look like. And with that said, so here is our Megazord next to our T-Rex Zord and our Dragonzord. So take this for what you will, but according to the wiki, the T-Rex is 27 meters, the Dragonzord is 38 meters, but the Megazord is 41 meters. So in terms of heights, this is a little weird, I guess, assuming that the wiki is correct on what the heights are supposed to be. I do feel like the Dragonzord is supposed to be just a little bit shorter than the Megazord is, at least, you know, when there are scenes of them fighting. The Dragonzord always seems just a little bit shorter, but there you go. At least overall, they do look good together, so that's kind of nice. And here are some more comparisons. So on our left is our super mini Pla Megazord. On our right is the Hasbro VHS Megazord. I don't have the regular one, obviously, I just have the red and gold one. And I think this makes a pretty good comparison to this one since this one doesn't transform, right? There's our Megazord holding the sword and the shield as well, so you can kind of see how it compares. I wish that the shield had some level of articulation because it's kind of too low pointing, and that's due to the fact that this doesn't have any articulation and this can only go up that far. So I'd have to pull it up like that just so you could see it. And I'd prefer it to be a little bit closer down. But hey, I guess that's more minor nitpicks. Here we have it next to Hasbro's first Megazord. This is the cheaper one that was like 60 something bucks, I think. And you can see, you know, definitely a lot fewer paint apps, and just overall definitely intended to be just a regular kid's toy. Here it is next to the Zap Megazord. You can see that the Zap Megazord is definitely way bigger. I don't know if that's really a fair comparison, but that's how it looks. The Zap is interesting because it's not quite exactly supposed to be exactly the Megazord because they do a lot of kind of their own detailing. It does look cool on its own in that regard, but if you're looking for screen accuracy, that's not going to be it for you. And finally, just a little comparison to the Altea Megazord that I've been building. I've got a whole playlist where I've been doing the builds of this, and this is super neat. And I just want to show a comparison of the level of detail. So on our Altea Megazord compared to the shield of our Super7 one, you can see that pretty much hits all the same marks. So that's actually really neat. Although what's interesting is how that's shaped here and that's shaped here. And I will do my best to find a picture comparison to see which one is actually the more accurate one. Over here, obviously, is the T-Rex, and let's go ahead and pull out the head. And that's how the two heads look. And I think they look pretty good. Like I said, I think the Super7 eyes need to be a little bit bigger, but overall, I think it still looks really good. Not quite as good as our Altea Megazord over here. If you like this video, then I've got more Power Rangers for you to watch right here.